All right, let's pull back the curtain on what it really takes to build a modern website. It's so much more than just writing code, right? It's really about crafting an entire experience. So, we're going to walk through this essential checklist, the one that really separates a good website from a truly great one.
Oh, you've been there, right? We've all been there. You're staring at that endless loading spinner, or you're jabbing at a button on your phone and just nothing happens. That feeling, that little bit of digital rage? Yeah, that's the enemy. And for any web developer worth their salt, conquering that frustration is absolutely mission number one.
And look, for a developer, that frustration isn't just some minor annoyance. No, it's a critical failure. See, modern web development isn't just about making code that works anymore. It's about building an entire experience that feels totally seamless, totally intuitive.
So the big question is, how do they actually pull that off? Well, it's a super delicate balancing act. Let's break it down. We're going to walk through the developer's essential checklist and explore the 4 key pillars that really hold up every great website out there.
Okay, first up on the checklist, performance. You know what they say? You never get a second chance to make a first impression. And on the web, that's truer than ever. This is all about raw speed. You know, how fast does it load? But it's also about stamina, which is really about how efficiently it runs once you're actually on the site.
So, when we say performance, what does that actually mean? It really just boils down to 3 key things. First, how fast does stuff actually show up on your screen? Second, how smoothly does it run? Are the animations and scrolling buttery smooth, or is it all jerky? And third, how much of your device's precious resources is it eating up?
And let me be clear, this is not a nice to have. It is absolutely critical. Get this, studies have shown that just a 1-second delay in page load time can tank conversions by 7%. It's wild. Not only will people just give up and leave a slow site, but Google's algorithm will actually punish it with lower search rankings. The bottom line here is super simple. A faster site means happy visitors, and that means better business.
Okay, so how do developers actually make websites faster? Well, it usually comes down to 3 main strategies. First, they optimize images to make sure they're not huge files that take forever to download. Second, they write really lean, efficient code that doesn't waste any time. And third, they use this clever trick called caching. All that does is it tells your browser to kind of save parts of the site, so the next time you visit, it loads way, way faster.
All right, let's circle back to that stamina idea. This is all about power consumption. You know, is your website an absolute battery hog on a smartphone? Does it make the fan on your laptop start screaming? In a world where, let's face it, most of us are browsing on our phones, this isn't some minor detail anymore. It's a core part of the whole experience.
And here's the cool part. Focusing on power efficiency is like a triple win. First, you save your user's battery life, which is a small act of kindness that everyone appreciates, right? Second, on a bigger scale, it actually helps reduce overall digital energy consumption. And finally, a power-efficient site just feels better. It's almost always smoother and more responsive, especially on the phones we use all day long. So a fast website is awesome, but what good is it if it doesn't even work on your device? That brings us right to our second pillar, universal access. The idea here is that a truly great website has to work for everyone, everywhere, no exceptions.
So there's a technical term for this, platform independence. And it sounds complicated, but it's a really simple, powerful idea. It just means your website should work perfectly whether you're on Chrome on a Windows PC, Safari on an iPhone, or, I don't know, Firefox on a tablet.
Really, the core idea here is about inclusivity, making sure nobody gets left out just because of the tech they're using. But there's also a huge bonus for the developer in all this. If you build for platform independence, you can write your code once and have it work pretty much everywhere. I mean, that is a total game changer for efficiency.
Okay, so we've got it. A website needs to be fast and it needs to work everywhere. But how does all that information actually travel from a server, maybe on the other side of the world, all the way to your screen? Well, that brings us to our third pillar, how websites actually talk to each other. Let's pop the hood and take a look.
This whole conversation is governed by a set of rules called protocols. The easiest way to think about them is like the shared language of the internet. You've definitely seen HTTP in a web address, right? That's the basic one. But that little SUC in HTTPS, that is so crucial. It means your connection is secure. It's encrypted. Then you've got other protocols like FTP that are built specifically for moving files around.
All right, now let's tackle a term you hear thrown around all the time, API.
It stands for Application Programming Interface, and all it really is a set of tools and rules that lets different apps and websites talk to each other and share information in a nice, standardized way.
And honestly, the best way to understand this is with an analogy. Think of an API like a restaurant menu. The menu tells you exactly what you can order from the kitchen and how to ask for it. You don't need to know what's going on in the kitchen, you don't care how they cook the food, you just need to know how to place your order from that menu. An API does that exact same thing, but for software. And believe it or not, you use APIs literally every single day, probably without even realizing it. That travel site that shows you the weather forecast, it's using a weather API. When you buy something online, there's a payment API in the background securely handling your credit card. And that little map on a store's website showing you where they are? Yep, that's the Google Maps API doing its thing.
So, all this communication, all this data flying back and forth between services and users, it's a lot of information. And protecting that data brings us to our fourth, and you could argue most critical pillar, security. This is all about building a digital fortress to keep everyone's information safe.
And the stakes here are just incredibly high. We're not just talking about code. We're talking about protecting people's personal information, preventing financial theft, and fighting off attacks that could knock a whole service offline. But honestly, beyond all the technical stuff, security really boils down to one simple thing: trust. And once you break that trust, it is nearly impossible to ever get it back. Now, a huge part of both security and performance comes down to one fundamental choice. Where does the code actually do its work? It can run on the client side. That just means in your browser, on your device. That's great for making the interface feel really fast and snappy. Or it can run on the server side, on the website's own powerful computers. That's way more secure, especially when you're dealing with sensitive data. And this really shows the classic developer's dilemma. On the one hand, running code on your device has some awesome benefits. You get those super snappy responses, and some things can even work when you're offline. But on the other hand, it opens up a whole can of worms with security and making sure it works on every single browser. So every single developer has to weigh these pros and cons. It is a constant balancing act.
Okay, let's wrap this up. What are the big takeaways from this developer's checklist? First, performance isn't just a feature, it's the absolute foundation of the user experience. Second, a great website has to work everywhere, for everyone, no excuses. Third, security is completely non-negotiable. Fourth, developers are always balancing where stuff gets processed, client versus server. And finally, you have to remember that building for the web isn't a one-and-done thing. It's a living process that needs constant testing and updates to stay great.
And that's our checklist for building a great website today. But, the web never ever stands still. With huge technologies like generative AI and augmented reality literally right around the corner, it really makes you wonder, right? What's going to be the fifth pillar on this checklist in a few years? What's the next big, hairy challenge that developers are going to have to solve?